Two things. One, I got married a month ago, and two, I made these cool coasters for our wedding, and in this video, I'm gonna show you how. Hello and welcome to Verbal to Visual. My name is Doug Neill, and this is going to be one of those behind the scenes videos when I share with you a project that I took on that uses the skill that I teach here, a skill called sketchnoting. If you'd like to learn more about that skill, go check out my previous videos. This one here is a little unique in that it centers on this important life event, getting married. And it was fun for me to take on this project and contribute to my wedding day in this particular way. So let me share it with you. The main reason we decided to make these was because we wanted to have some sort of a keepsake, some memento from our wedding that the guests could take with them, just to remind them of that particular day, that particular celebration, and hopefully all of the fun that they had. We settled on coasters because we like the fact that these are functional. They could be used during the wedding itself and also after the wedding if folks decided to take them home. And they were also functional in that we used them to let folks know where they were sitting. We tried to be very intentional with our seating chart, and this was kind of a simple way to let folks know what table they were sitting at on their way into the venue. We also chose coasters because we knew it was something we could personalize. So let's get to that part next. As it turns out, it's pretty easy to get your own coasters made. We used a service called For Your Party. By the way, this is not a sponsored video. On this site, you can make all sorts of customized party accessories, and most important for our purposes here, you can upload your own artwork to be printed on those objects. We, of course, went with the coasters, round in shape, eggshell in color. I uploaded the image that I had sketched out. I will share how I went about creating that image in a second. Selected the matte black color option, adjusted the size to make it as large as possible, and placed it as much in the center as possible. They give you a pretty good preview option here to get a sense for what it will actually look like, and then you just decide how many you want. We were expecting about 150 guests, but we wanted some extras, so I think we ordered 175. Notice there's a $50 fee if you are uploading your own custom artwork. I think that's because they make a custom metal stamp essentially of your artwork, because the final product does have a little bit of indentation to it, which is nice. It gives it kind of a letterpress feel. You can choose to just go off that reference image there or get a digital proof sent to you, which gives you one more opportunity to see what the image will look like right before they make that metal stamp of it. And I will give a shout out to customer service here because I went with the print as is option, but then a day later I actually had some small adjustments that I wanted to make to the artwork. And with just a bit of email correspondence, I was able to share the updated artwork, and they even went ahead and created one of those digital proofs just to make sure it looked the way I wanted it to, and that was a big help. And it was very exciting to get these in the mail. I intentionally left a bit of space at the bottom of the design so that I could add in the name of each guest as well as their table number, and using a black pen in my handwriting made it all feel cohesive, consistent with the design itself. So overall, I'm really happy with how they turned out. I did notice the slightest blemish on each coaster, and you might not even be able to see it, but it's a tiny line at the top, a little bit of an indentation, I think where the top of the metal plate was that actually had my design on it. I think that as that was being stamped, it was just ever so slightly maybe tipped forward so that it created just a tiny line at the top of the coaster. At first, I was a little bit frustrated about that, but then I remembered that this is meant to be used. I was hoping that people would spill beer and wine and coffee on it, so that type of minor blemish wasn't important at all. So in the end, I'm very happy with the role that these played in our wedding. Our guests seemed to enjoy them as well. So next, let me share with you how I actually created the design. I started with some pencil sketches. Initially, we had the idea of going with the hexagon coasters. I knew I wanted to have Shelby and Doug 2019 on there somewhere, but also I knew that I wanted some sort of imagery to go with it. potentially a sketch of our house. I abandoned that one pretty quickly and decided instead on imagery related to where we live and where we met, which is Portland, Oregon. I ended up landing on this design that captures some important features of the city that also played a role in our relationship. Some water for the Willamette River that splits the city in half, the Hawthorne Bridge, which turns into Hawthorne Avenue, because when we first met, Shelby was living just north of Hawthorne Avenue and I was living just south of it. So there's lots of memories connected to that area. And then we've also got Mount Hood in the background there, just as a reminder of all the outdoor adventures over the years. From there, I went over to the iPad. I've got an iPad Pro and Apple Pencil, and I use the app Procreate. And initially, I thought I might want to include more text than I actually did. Some text that shared a little bit of our story. The house that I first lived in was called The Yard because milkshakes. Shelby's house was called The Madhouse because it was on Madison. But now we live in the Montevilla neighborhood with our dog Murphy. And even though I like the idea of trying to include some of our story here on the coaster itself, this design just felt a little bit too cluttered. So I decided to get rid of that text and instead just add the city, state, and date for a simpler, cleaner design. I then exported that as a transparent image, and that's what I uploaded. And again, I'm really happy with how they turned out and the role that they played in our wedding. So if you've got an event coming up that might benefit from some custom coasters or other objects, consider creating some sketched version that personalizes them a little bit to make them that much more meaningful for you and for your guests. And if you'd like a bit of support building your writing and drawing skills to be able to make something like this or take notes in a more visual way, that's what sketchnoting is all about, incorporating quick sketches and diagrams into the note-taking process, then check out the courses available at verbaltovisual.com. Thank you so much for watching. Do let me know if you take on a project like this yourself, and I look forward to talking with you again in the next video. Until then.